We all want to live in our own homes as long as we possibly can. But there might come a situation in our life that changes everything, and we have to change our living situation. What's the best option for us? Well, stay tuned because our guest today is going to explain to us about what does it mean to age in place and what are the options for us. So stay tuned. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scan FYI. Hey, Mary Beth, how are you today?
Good morning, Andrea. How are you? Happy September 1st. Can you believe it?
Oh my God, no. All right, September. See you in September. Wow, that I almost forgot about that. I probably blanked it out.
So we have our special guest with us this morning, Mr. Jim Winn of Comfort Keepers, who's also a board member of SCAN. So good morning, Jim. How are you?
Morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Glad to have
you. How are you
back.
Guys today?
We're excellent.
We're excellent on September 1st.
Getting ready for fall.
Yeah, in a few weeks, but I have a feeling if it's anything like the summer, it's going to be a very hot fall.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
My favorite month.
Is it your favorite month? It's my favorite month too. I think fall is the best season of all. So fall is like a transition time. So perfect segue into transitioning.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about that transition that happens when someone decides that maybe they need to find a different living arrangement. So Jim, let's kick that off a little bit this morning. So what are some of our options that we might have?
So, I go into many homes. Through the years, I've gone into many people's homes in many circumstances. So, I do in-home care for seniors and private duty nursing. And generally our goal is to keep people at home and allow them to have independence of living in their own home for as long as they want, and some people that means to the very end. Some people want to live and die in their homes. A lot of people don't know, what they want to do. They haven't thought about it a lot of times. A lot of times they get to me too late, they're already in a crisis situation in their home, and so I try to get people to come to see me early. It's great when people call and they're just kind of thinking about it, because I tell them to have us come in and talk to them, about their circumstance. And the first thing when I go to someone's home and talk to them is I look around and see if the home is appropriate for them to stay there. Once they start having issues with getting into a shower, help with their ADLs, is this home going to be appropriate? If there's, big steps going up to the front of the home, that's a big concern. Can the home be modified? Is there, is it a split level? The 70s, they built tons of split levels.
Right.
They're great for families because you have I grew up in a split level.
Yeah,
my wife hates split levels. She thinks they're ugly.
Stairs up, stairs down.
Stairs up, stairs down. They're great. I mean, there's things you can do to them. You can modify them, but generally that type of home can be difficult. Or unless there's a ground floor where they can live. And I've seen that. And are they willing? So then you got to look at your home. You look around your home. If it is 2 stories, can I modify the downstairs so that is there a shower downstairs? Or can I go up to the shower once a day or something like that? And can it be modified where I can put a bedroom downstairs maybe? And some of that requires change, which, as we all know, when you get older, people are very resistant to change, and
Yes.
they have their house a certain way. If you're somebody that your house has to be a certain way and you want to put a bedroom in the living room or something like that, then it may be time to decide, whether you want to move, and moving can be a number of things. They did a study once. The number one reason that kids put their parents into, say, assisted living or even independent living is the issues with the home become a problem. Things breaking, maintenance on the home, roof, all that stuff. Now the children have to get involved. And that's another thing. If you don't have children, that's a big consideration because, and if your children don't live in the state or they're not nearby or they're not willing to help you, that's another consideration you have to have because, they may not be able to help you with some of the maintenance issues with the house. And when you're of right size, when you're of right mind, and you're younger, you can't imagine that these things will become issues as you get older. But I've seen some very capable people really struggle when they get older. So what are your choices? What's the choice? So again, aging in place, you can stay in your home, but you do have to be aware that it costs money. If you're going to need help, we're going to need home care, and that can run just as much as some of the facilities, and as you get older, once you start to get into your 80s and 90s, it can run over $100,000 a year in cost. So,
and just to clarify, that's to stay at home.
That's to stay at home.
Right.
So, and it's very comparable to say going to an independent living and so forth.
Yeah.
So you got to look at your finances, and you should talk to an elder law attorney, about what your options are and about what people do. There's some people have long-term care policies. They're not as rich as they were because the good thing is we're all living longer. 37% of my clients are over age of 90. The other 37%, it's almost equal, are over the age of 80. So we're all living much longer. I mean, living past 90. And I have some people, I don't have a stat on the over hundreds, but I got a couple of those. So we're all living longer. So the finances, are a big consideration. So living at home, if I have to keep you at home, Medicare at this point, it could change. They're looking at options, is not going to cover home care. So essentially, it's going to be private pay or long-term care insurance in order to cover these costs of staying home. And that's a big consideration. Whereas, and I'm not an expert on this part of it, but whereas if you go to a facility, when you run out of assets, the government will kick in, but your assets are going to be gone. And that's a hard thing for some people to really stomach, that they've saved their whole life. It's like I saved my whole life for my son to go to college, and now he's going to college, and I hate to see that money go. Like, I can't believe I have to write a check now, and I think it's the same with people's personal finances. So either you have to save the money, or you have to look at long-term care policies that will cover, these costs, and there's a lot of different policies out there. There's some people out there that think they're a ripoff, and there's some people that swear by them. So it's all a matter of opinion, and they aren't cheap, those policies. By the way, those policies can help you if you go to a facility or somewhere else, but that pay for long-term care, anything involved with long-term care. So you have to take into consideration those things if you're going to stay at home, that it's going to cost you money. You're going to have the maintenance on your home and all that. That being said, there's people who just never want to move out of their home, and they'll do anything they can to stay in. They'll take reverse mortgages out on their homes just to stay there.
So Jim, let me ask you a question. So people who are listening right now, and maybe they've got older parents that are kind of right in this situation, how do you broach this topic with your parents to kind of get the ball rolling, to make them realize that being at home is no longer a viable thing for them? Maybe your kids live locally, but maybe your kids aren't even in a position where they can help the parents. I think sometimes we make an assumption that your kids are going to always be there. Not true, even if they live 5 minutes away. So what do you say? What do you advise people to say to their parents to get them thinking in the direction of maybe moving?
Well, morally and actually legally even, you have a responsibility to take care of your parents. So you need to have that talk with them as they get older and say, what are your plans? And the first thing you bring up, well, would you consider going to an independent living facility? Or, would you, again, they get to these places, a lot of times they'll tell you, people that own these facilities, I talk to them, they say they get there too late. So what is your plan? Because if you live far away, I live far away, and usually I would use an example of a friend. Usually we all have friends that have gone through this,
Right.
And we all know people that have gone through this. So I have friends, and I want to make sure that we get ahead of this. What would your plans be if you start to become, where you need help? And I think it's an important thing. Long-term care policies are nice that way because that's paid for. You have an option there, but I've seen so many different scenarios where the parents do not want to get help and they rely on the kids, and it's not fair. In some cases, it's not fair, because the kids usually, because everybody's older, the kids are either some of them are retiring. This is
Right.
not, their kids are gone. If they have kids, their kids are gone, and they're looking forward to their golden years. And now they've got to take care of an aging parent, which could start at 80 years old and go to another 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like your children. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it's tough love, where I'm not going to be able. I'm willing to help, but I'm not going to be able to come here every day. And so they get very dependent on the kids, and a lot of times they're resistant to getting care because they don't want the kids to stop coming around. Or sometimes I've seen it, they'll move to where the kids are, and live near them, so that they do have that support structure. But it's still an issue because people don't realize caring for somebody else is a lot of work. It's a lot of logistics, as far as doctor's appointments, whether they're taking care of themselves, whether maintenance on the home or whatever. It ends up being a lot of work,
Especially if your kids have their own family and, people have jobs and everything. I mean, you want to be there.
The sandwich generation.
The sandwich generation.
We have our own families and we're caring for our parents.
Yeah, not an easy thing.
But I think Jim brought up an excellent point, is that conversation is extremely important, and you don't want to have it when you're in
crisis mode.
Crisis mode, right? Have the conversation when everything is quiet and everyone's got a cool head, if you will. And I think that conversation is important.
Yeah, because what happens is dad has a fall, he breaks a hip. Next thing you know, he needs 24-hour care.
Right.
Who's going to do that? What's that going to look like? Are you going to take time off of your job, to help your parents? Are you going to be able to do that? And then some of my clients, the kids have their own physical ailments, because sometimes I don't know who the patient is. I've seen that, you go in and the children look worse than the parents. Sometimes they're in their 70s. We all see that. Everyone looks different in different aging. Some people, have, health problems, that make it difficult too. So it really the conversation and plan should be made as early as possible to what you want to do, particularly too with dementia and Alzheimer's. Again, as we age longer, your chances of becoming cognitively impaired incrementally go higher. So there's a very good chance, even when you get into your 90s, a perfectly good person, you start to become cognitively impaired. And you really need to have a plan before it's too late. So it should be a discussion with the family.
Well, like on so many things that we've talked about on FYI, we've learned that if you don't make the choices when you're totally, when you're able to, someone is going to come along and make them for you. And you might not be too happy with what somebody else decides for you. So always best to make this choice when you can. So certainly we're going to put all of Jim's contact information in all of the comments if anyone wants to reach out to him. So Jim, do you often, is this part of your role as a consultant when people are wondering what should they be doing? They can call you to get a little more info?
Yeah, people call me all the time, and sometimes they become clients and sometimes they don't. And that's okay. So I've gone to see people and said, your parents need to go to, somewhere where they're just going to get some help. It may be because, they're so resistant to having somebody come into their home. There's some people, like I've had people that had experience with my own family this way. They don't want somebody coming into their home. And they
Right.
do better going somewhere else.
I see that too. Yeah,
You know,
nobody,
so-
nobody in the house. So that's a big obstacle and a big
Yeah.
and a burden for the children. You know, I think why do parents forget maybe that they really can be burdening their kids with that? That's that guilt thing too.
Yeah, it's just a different, you know, everyone's got a different way of raising their kids and looking at their children, but some people just feel that your kids are obligated to do that. You know, me, I don't want my kids taking care of me, but they feel that's part of, and what I explain to them a lot of times is 30 years ago, 40 years ago, yeah, your mom might, or dad would, usually dad dies younger. Dad usually died at like, it's just scary to think, 55, 60, you know, they died young. The men died young, and then mom would come live with you maybe a couple of years. But now it could be 20, 30 years. And plus, people are different. They don't want to live with their kids. You know, you ask a bunch of seniors, if you go to one of your scan classes, how many would you want to live with their children? And they'll go, no. And in fact, a lot of times the kids want the parents to live there because it's a little easier for them. You know, sometimes it's financial too, you know. It's just it's really a different world now that we're living in from when they were. And that's why sometimes they have that stuck in their head, you know, the old families, the Asian families, the Italians, you know, they would have people, family lived with them for the longest time. In fact, in college, I lived with a guy from Singapore, and he said, you Americans are the worst. You know, you send your parents to old age homes, you know, but he doesn't know what some of these places look like. I mean, some of these places are like country clubs that they make to. It's not like some dismal nursing homes. They've got Wi-Fi, they've got socialization. And I think they are appropriate alternatives to what I do. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, somebody who's very social, for instance, you know, is a good candidate to go to independent living, you know, but you just have to have the understanding that at some point, you may have to get help from somebody outside like me, you know, because if your ADLs become too much, either you're going to have to go to assisted living, which is fine too, you know, and eventually to skilled care. And my experience is they don't want to go to that next level. They think they do when they go to the place, and then sometimes they don't. So you just have to realize that might happen, you know, and be okay with that, you know. So then sometimes it's just moving to an over 55 community, or moving to just a place that's a little bit smaller, you know, get rid of some of that clutter in the house. I can't tell you how many people I told them to move. They're like, no way. And then after they moved and threw everything out, all the stuff that you accumulated over 60 years, they were just felt so free to being in a smaller space, you know, because as you get older, you start to just use 1 or 2 rooms in your house.
Right. Right.
Jim, I just want to highlight, you used the term ADL a couple of times, and everyone might not know what that means. So that's activities of daily living. So you're dressing, you're bathing. I was going to say, in meal and nutrition, a lot of times as people age, that's one of the things that, you know, doesn't get attention, and they're not eating properly. So when you move to an assisted living facility, your meals and everything are being prepared for you. Which is
so my own family member, I thought it was more appropriate because her big thing was the meals.
Yeah.
She was all about going to a country club or whatever. And to her, having a structured meal to look forward to was a huge thing. Now I can do that, but it's just a one-on-one caregiver type of circumstance. And once you stop being able to drive, but I have other circumstances where I've seen people saying, I'm moving mom, she's 90 to assisted living because I want her to socialize more, because mom's watching TV all day, they think, or, you know, she's not as active. But I've seen where they go to the assisted living and they never leave their room, because what you also have to realize, and it's very important, what you consider a quality of life for you is not always a quality of life for somebody that's in their 80s or 90s. Right. Sometimes just getting up in the morning, having your coffee, listening to the birds, looking out in your yard, that's enough for a lot of people. Right. And you can look at it in your own life. I mean, when I was young, I had to go out every weekend, Friday, Saturday night. If I didn't go out, you know, I think I was a big loser. You know, now I don't want to go anywhere. You know, I'm fine with watching Netflix at home. So my kids would say my quality of life stinks. but I would say, no,
Happy.
I'm happy.
Mhm.
So, you just have to realize for that individual, it's all different. People go, as I say, I see people go to assisted living or independent living and they love it. And I see people absolutely hate it. And it's the same with home care. Some people hate having somebody come in, and take care of them. So, or, cook them a meal or whatever, they just don't like that. So you got to really look at the person's personality, what their home looks like, finances, all those things you have to take in consideration when looking at a plan.
So there is a lot to think about, and the sooner you kind of have your family meeting, the better. Take the burden off you and make it easier for your parents to have a good, comfortable transition so they can age in place, right?
And another great tip too is you can always have trial periods. So someone like Jim, you can say, mom or dad, try having someone come into your house
Yeah.
for a week. And in the assisted living facilities, you can also do what's called a respite program. And you can stay there for 2 weeks. Every facility is different. It could be 30 days. And there's no obligation. So mom or dad get to try it out and see if they like it before you make a commitment.
That's a great point.
I did that with a family member, and it was a great way to, give them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, when people get into home care, I tell them all the time, it's not a long-term commitment. You can cancel at any time. We need a little notice, but it's not like, you're
all in.
selling your house.
Right.
That's a big decision once you sell your house, and you sign those papers, that's probably a pretty large commitment once you get to that point.
Well, that's a permanent commitment. That's permanent once you sell your house. Yeah. So there's there's lots of things to try before you get to that point. So people should know that they can take advantage of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's a really good point that Mary Beth made. I don't think 2 weeks is enough time to really decide if you like a place. I think you need to give it a month.
30 days. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I don't think it's, there's an adjustment period once you move in and all that. But I've seen people go in and thrive in those environments, but then some houses you really need to just sell the house. I mean, it's almost the definitive because the house it's just not appropriate for a senior, and again, moving to a condo or some other thing where you don't have to, again, because your kids are going to end up helping you with the maintenance of the house, so.
Right.
But those respite periods are really good opportunities to go. The one problem with them is people who are really resistant to change just say they don't like it, no matter what,
Mine was that before they even tried it. Yeah.
And you got to look at if they're cognitively impaired at the time. That's also another problem because, they may have to go to somewhere like that. And so this is a complicated subject because now if you're talking to an adult, a parent that's cognitively impaired, sometimes you're going to have to make that choice whether they like it or not. So that's the other thing, I think that's another conversation with a lawyer or another law attorney for you guys is, what kind of plan needs to be in writing, and that is a very important thing. I think you have to decide what child. This whole other thing, which child is going to, if you have a bunch of kids, somebody's going to have to be the decision maker. Just like in any organization, you have to have a decision maker in the end. And sometimes if there's too many cooks involved, you want to make sure also that your kids don't hate you in the end. You hate each other in the end.
Hate each other. Mom always liked you best. Yeah.
So anything you can put on paper, any kind of plan, telling your kids your wishes, you asking them, as I said, we all avoid this, but it's an important thing, if you care, about people who might help you. It's not always your kids, it's friends, I see friends and all sorts of other people that go and are helping people and are kind of burdened with that job. So, it's really something that you do want to get, look at what you want in the end, and I recommend people just go tour places and see, just for the heck of it, just see what they look like, talk to home care, and look at the different costs. And, do you home care, if you can get a live-in, but do you have an extra bedroom for them? So if you're moving to a condo, I would recommend somebody getting a 2-bedroom,
Right.
so that they have room for another person. And even if that person isn't a family member, or they don't think they're going to have a live-in or anything like that, sometimes you just have to have somebody come and stay with you, temporarily. So, I mean, some kids are glad to do this for their parents, some kids become the primary caregivers for their parents. So many scenarios we can talk about, because it's a big topic. This could be an all-day, seminar as far as the different types of scenarios. I mean, there are some programs out there, not as much in New Jersey, but will pay children to be caregivers, so then it becomes, a full-time job.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm not a big fan of that, and maybe because I'm biased, but I think now you're giving, after you pass, I see a lot of the kids don't know what to do with themselves. They've devoted so much time to taking care of their parent that I don't know if it's that healthy, of a thing,
Yeah.
but people do it. And if you have to do it, it's what you got to do.
Well, clearly there is not one solution that's going to be appropriate for everyone. There's a lot of options out there. So a great idea might be to call Jim at Comfort Keepers. Maybe he'll be able to kind of steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, I always love talking to people about their individual circumstances.
All right, good. All right, good. And again, all his contact info, we'll put that in the comments. So Jim Winn of Comfort Keepers and also board member of SCAN, thank you so much for being our guest today. We appreciate all the info.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to see you guys.
Thank you. All right, remember out there, if it's important to you, it's important to us. I'm Andrea Tarr, and we'll see you next time on SCAN FYI. Bye, everyone.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.